Nobody told me that was happening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I unfortunately am not a luck dragon. I'm a neurotic dragon.
Well, possibly you could be a doggy dragon, because that's what I called him when I was little.
Doggy dragon?
My dog Frodo looked so much
like
Baltar. It's just
so
brought
funny.
back a lot of feels, although his nose was black.
Right.
So it wasn't
Like
quite the same.
Like you do.
But anyway, yeah, I'm Steven. You know me. You know John. You know Nessie. They're here all the time. And maybe you remember Christina. Christina was on before to talk about some other old movie, Highlander. And you were great in that. We really enjoyed having you. So when we were doing another old movie, because you are a self-professed cinephile.
I am.
So it's really great to have you back for The Neverending Story.
One of my favorites.
A movie from my childhood.
Yep.
I wore out a VHS tape of it. And John, you'll be happy to know that I watched it today on physical media.
Oh my God, I'm the guilty one because I actually I don't currently own a copy of the film, so I had to rent it on Amazon.
Tisk.
I know. I know.
Yeah, I actually do have the DVD of it too. So.
Yeah. Now I watched what I had. That was, I'm like, I've already got this. I'm not going to pay $4 to rent it somewhere. But it was letterbox, so
yeah.
I wanted the full screen, widescreen format, but you go with what you got, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched it with commercials, so.
You watched it what?
I watched it with commercial interruption.
Oh no!
I felt really, really like deep in the 80s while I was watching it.
Perfect.
You look at me like that's not even possible anymore. Yeah, you can watch the interruption.
So Slasher Fred says all he's hearing is echoes. Is anyone else experiencing audio issues? You all sound fine to me.
I hear all you guys fine.
I hear you guys fine.
But let's throw that out to the people watching. If they can't hear us, then
right. But like, if they didn't hear us, our people would tell us we don't hear you.
Right.
All right. Kate says she can hear us fine. So maybe it's just an audio issue on, not on our end. So I hope
maybe if they close out the YouTube video and come back in, they'll get a better connection. It could just be a connection issue. But if we continue to have problems, please let us know.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my own personal little Falcor.
Look at that guy.
That's pretty darn cute, John.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
God, I miss him so much. I can't believe it's been so. This is not a stream about my, me being, sad about my dog Frodo, but I lost him about 5 years ago now. But he was the most adorable guy ever, and he did remind me of Falcor. So.
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's just jump in.
Yeah.
And I usually, these conversations usually start with like the overall top-down look at the thing. Christine, as our guest, would you like to go first?
Okay. Top down. So I guess there was a couple of themes that I noticed watching it this time analytically, as opposed to just watching the story unfold and just enjoying it. But I noticed in the very beginning and kind of throughout, there's this theme of breaking stereotypes. So in the very first bit with the rock eater and the guy with the snail and all of that, you have this giant stone monster who turns out to be gentle and nice. And then you have this the snail who turns out to be the racing snail. And then you have Atreyu, who looks to be just a child, but turns out to be a hero and a great warrior. And it just goes on through, like,
the Empress is a child.
Right, exactly. She's a great leader who can solve every problem, but she's a little kid. Yeah, there's just like Maura, the Ancient One. She like, she's supposed to be wise and helpful, but instead she just doesn't give two shits about anything.
But like, we'll circle back to this later. But
Sure.
I actually think that's a beautiful thing about the movie, is that she is that character. Anyway, I hate to interrupt, but like, she's not what you expect. But so many of these unexpected things being turned on their head really work with some of the larger themes.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I kind of looked at the heroes' journeys for both Bastian and Atreyu, and noticed some things about how their heroes' journeys kind of go backwards from one another, because Bastian starts out as kind of a, like a coward. Basically, he runs and hides from his problems instead of confronting them, and just lets them do, these bullies lets them bully him. And then he goes through this arc of learning from Atreyu to be brave.
Mm-hmm.
And then Atreyu kind of goes the other way, because at the beginning he's this brave warrior, and then he goes through all of these like trials and tribulations, and by the end of it he's like confused and he's kind of hopeless, and he's ready to give up a couple of times. And so it's kind of weird. It's backwards from each other, almost like the real boy sucked the life out of the pretend boy. So
right, love it. Yeah. Nessie, I would kind of like your top-down view as well.
I didn't really like it.
Okay.
Again,
oh, no.
Sorry, John. Sorry, Christine. I watched it when it was new. I didn't like it. I waited 30 years. Still didn't like it that much. I mean, there were things that I enjoyed about it. Like, it's very, very 1984.
It
very
is
much.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from product placement on the breakfast table to the techno pop new wave kind of theme song. It's very like, yes, I remember this from the 80s, all of this. I mean, so it does have that kind of nostalgic feel to it, which is okay. Then you have, the trope of the stiff-necked dad who I wear a suit and I live in the real world, and son, you must come of age and give up all of these fantasy nonsense, that kind of thing. It was really like a big theme through the 80s. Everything that was fun that you enjoyed was bad and you had to give it up because that's what adults do.
Right. Labyrinth had a similar thing with
Labyrinth. Footloose had it.
But my counterpoint is all of these movies are saying that is the wrong standpoint, though.
That's true.
Right. That's what it's saying, but that's the kind of the 80s sort of trope. You must put away these childish things and live in the real adult world. And we were kind of like, nah, I don't think so. I'm going to still play my games. I'm going to read my nerdy fantasy books. I'm going to, play my video games, and, very Gen X, the whole very heavy-handed Gen X themes the whole way through. So.
But I think that's a trope.
I like the costuming.
Go ahead. You're freezing up a bit, Nessie, so I'm not going to interrupt.
I'm freezing up. I thought you were freezing up.
No, Nessie, it's
okay.
you, Nessie.
Am I better now?
We'll see.
Oh, shit. Okay. Let me try again.
Okay, well,
the streaming gods did not agree with her take
right.
on the movie.
They forced the Neverending story, and the internet gods were like, nope. All right, John, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, let me just say that I had not seen this movie since I was a little kid, but I remember watching it like a million times as a kid.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not gonna dive yet into like analyzing specific like themes and stuff like that yet. We'll get there. But I just wanted to say that like the minute that this movie started, having like barely remembered anything about it beforehand, the second it started, everything came flooding back. Like as soon as that song comes on, I'm like, oh shit, I know this. And then like there'd be lines throughout the movie where it'd be like, oh my god, it's like I feel like I'm a kid again. Yeah, it's like all of a sudden it became. It's like that thing that gets stuck in. It's in your head, but it's lost for years and then comes back.
I do not want to shame anyone. I do not want to age discriminate anyone here. I am 46 years old. Anybody else can tell you their age or not. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you are even a few years older than me, this movie was too childish for you when it came out and when you first experienced it. I was 9, so I was actually already older than Bastian is in the story because I think he's 8.
Right. I was 3, and I absolutely adored this film.
Right, but but one of my big takeaways from this viewing was if you didn't see this when you were a kid, and love it as a kid, you do not have the benefit of nostalgia goggles.
Mm. Yeah.
Although I tried to watch this movie without nostalgia goggles, and I actually found it to be better than Nessie did. It's got its problems. It's not perfect by any means, but overall, I think it really does do what it sets out to do.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I'd like, obviously I can't cite any examples right now, but I'd wager you could find some people who came to this later, but have like, but are kids inside, that still enjoy it. But I get the perspective that, if you're older and it doesn't, work for you, then that's, it's fine. Like I get it, but I don't know. It's hard for me to judge that completely since I did see it when I was a kid. So I suppose there's no way to be completely objective, but again, I hadn't seen it for years and years and years. So I don't know. Like I saw the things that people might like roll their eyes at or whatever, but it's like it's got so much freaking heart.
Yeah.
That I think it just it all of that just sort of works in its favor in a way. So I don't know. That's
I was just going to ask really quickly. Has anybody read the book?
I've just started to read the book. I'm a couple chapters in. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read.
Oh no.
It's pretty well established at this point.
So I won't spoil anything, I hope. But the book it follows most of the book really, really faithfully. So you're going to get a lot of the stuff that you loved about the movie, you're going to get in the book, except more.
But it goes further.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie covers basically the first half of the book. And then there's the second half of the book, which they tried to do in Neverending Story 2, which I don't know if anybody's watched that, but don't.
I remember watching that as a kid, and let me finish before you say anything, enjoying it. But right. I'm aware enough to know that I should not go back to that one.
Right. I really
like.
Yeah, I really liked some of the costumes in the second one. The people in the Silver City were really cool, but yeah, through most of it, I was a little bit like, it's not the same. So
that was one thing that I really did enjoy about this movie. I did like the costumes, the characters at the court, like the multi-faced people who had like two or three faces, the big bobblehead guys. Like it was very there was a lot of imagination put into it. It wasn't like just your standard fantasy characters. They put a lot of extra thought into that. So I did like that quite a bit. I would have liked to have seen a little more of some of those guys. And like the little gnomish people that they were sitting around the campfire in the beginning, with the rock eater and the snail rider, those guys. I would really like to have seen them too as part of this adventure, but knowing that the quest he had to go alone, that kind of cuts out him having any like sidekicks or ride-alongs or what have you.
It's also one of the things that I'm noticing about the book so far is there's a couple instances, even only being a couple chapters in, where it's like you'll like read from the perspective of like these characters, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, and they go off and have adventures, but that's another story, and then it's sort of leaves them to sort of exist outside of the frame of the story, which I kind of like.
Okay, I want to weigh in on this. I haven't given my like top-down view yet, anyway. So one of the biggest, I've got things to say, y'all. So I think that one of the biggest themes in the film is grief, which Bastian is dealing with grief throughout the entire film, and we see Atreyu. Like we'll come back to it.
We're going to talk about Artax.
But there's also a sort of this story has things to say about storytelling, about the purpose of narrative.
Which there's no way like I absorbed that as a kid.
Me neither. I didn't notice it,
and I loved it this time around.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, like the theme of the whole idea of having to renew imagination, having to inspire the next generation into being creative, and I really have I've loved that since I was a kid, because like the idea of having an imagination and not having one's feet on the ground all the time was incredibly important to me growing up. And like I wouldn't do any of the creative things that I've done in my life if it weren't for movies like this and for Labyrinth and other kinds of really great fantasy stories that I consumed as a child. But
I think it's a good fantasy story.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great meta text on storytelling, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
While I didn't love the same things about it as an adult that I did as a kid, but given that we've been doing this for a couple years now, and we're part of the A Song of Ice and Fire community, we have learned how to analyze text and learn how to analyze story. And I really I loved what this story had to say about the power of telling stories, and that it's not just the character on the page to the reader, but it's also that reader to the people in their life. The childlike empress says something to the effect of, there are people sharing in your story, and we can interpret that as us, the audience. She's even like fourth wall breaking in that moment when she says it, but
which I think is even probably an even more like an even greater device for the book, I'd wager, because you're reading about a character reading a book hearing this. So I think that probably works even better in that context.
I got you.
Yeah, I guess
all the way down.
Yeah, which is why it's the never-ending story.
Right, because
going, it's further and further back with all the readers.
And I also love that maybe like is the Nothing the antagonist or is Gmork the antagonist? Really kind of both, but Gmork is sort of like something we can relate to or relate with a little more. And I really love that Gmork is the one to like really lay out some of the metaphors at the end, because it's a movie that's designed to help children learn how to deal with grief, I think, which is not an easy thing for adults to do.
Right.
But
sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna chime in, agreeing with you that there's a huge theme of loss and also helplessness against that loss, and like all of these characters who aren't what they seem, especially the mentor characters that they meet throughout, like each one of them gives them a tiny little piece, but they never are helpful enough, right? And so it's all like just I've lost things and I can't change that, and I can't get all the help that I need, and that's kind of where Atreyu gets into that helplessness, that hopeless place at the end. So yeah, that was all. Sorry.
I think that's a very astute observation.
Sean, I'm right there with you. Apologies to those reading my story. Because
all I'm saying is that
it is really dull.
All I'm saying is that when I close and lock the door, please stop reading. Nessie, I haven't heard from you in a couple minutes. I mean, you famously hate this movie with all of your being.
Well, of course, and I was struck down by the internet gods for such blasphemy, apparently.
I'm really interested in what you have to say. Like, it's just too tropey, or...
I think it is that I just came at it at maybe the wrong age the first time around. I was in my late teens. I was like looking for a thing, I was more interested in, in Star Wars and and a lot, high fantasy, and then this was okay. This was like something I would watch with my younger cousins who, they kind of enjoyed it, but I was like, okay, we'll watch this and then we'll watch.
Were they a pain in the ass?
Kinda. I mean, I was the oldest, so it was my job that they were a pain in the ass.
Look over them.
Yeah. So
that might have something to do with it.
Well, also, I mean, there's stuff that just doesn't like. I mean, this is a movie that its audience is little kids, and if you're not of that certain age group, as I said, it's entirely possible for an adult to come to this and find the charm and the whimsy in it. But it's more likely that the people who are going to look on this fondly are sort of people like me and like Stephen, who were, enraptured by it, as a little kid.
And yet at the same time.
And carry that with them. But if it just wasn't for you at that time in your life, then you're not going to carry that with you.
Right. Yeah. At the same time, I watched like one of the worst fantasy movies out there, and just have this same nostalgic love for it. Like, I love Legend, which is, if anything, is worse than this. If anything, it's campy and it's worse than this movie. But yet, I still love it. So
see, I saw that. I saw that as a young adult and didn't respond to it. So
exactly. So I think it was more of a timing thing with me. Had I watched it maybe 5 years younger, it would have been, oh, look, it's a flying dog dragon. Oh, I love him. Oh, it's my thing. And I would have had like a pillow or something. But with me, it was kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing for me is like I said earlier, I can see stuff in this movie that I recognize people will, either roll their eyes at or not take it seriously. But I'm so given over to, like I said, within like 5 seconds of that opening song playing, I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this. they because it just brought everything back, and even to the point of like it canceled out all my cynicism. Even with like the music, you guys have heard me go on and on about how much I love like pure classical orchestral music.
Yeah.
And this movie has like 80s electronics all over the place, but I love it to death.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just because
Color
I can't help it.
Not surprised.
It's great, and you know, it's so much. I was geeking out so much about the soundtrack that I've actually like already read up on the score and everything, and actually it's funny because everybody obviously goes on and on about the opening song of the film,
and that's not part of the original soundtrack.
It's not even like in any version of the film, like outside, or at least not in. I know it's not in the German release, and I think it's just for the U.S. Version. And most of the score, you know, is written by a composer who, and that's in the film wherever you watch it. But a lot of the more sort of some of the more synth, you know, pop elements, including the opening song, were added for the U.S. release. And like normally, that's something that I would be like, but it works so well for the movie, and I love it. And I had this song, like it's still stuck in my head after watching it yesterday, and it's probably going to be for a while. And by the way, I have not watched Stranger Things, so I don't even like. I'm not even in on all the hoopla. Well, I only became aware after, like, you know, we had been talking about, you know, doing this movie today, and then I actually looked up the clip last night, and yes, it's the most adorable thing in the world. And
it is cute. I'll give you that.
And hopefully when I get around to watching the show, it'll mean even more. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I have to eat my words about electronic music because that it's gloriously 80s in all the right ways.
So I would just say I'm going to weigh in on the theme song as well. And I'm a known music lover, but 80s synth pop is one of the few genres of music that I never particularly cared for. It is what it is. There's a lot of 80s music I love, but not that synth saturated poppy sound, you know? And this song was played on the radio non-stop. So I kind of hate the song.
No!
But like I allowed it to be okay while watching the movie. But now that it's kind of stuck in my head, I'm just like, oh my God. Hold on a second. John St. Baptiste. Where have you been, my man? Send me a DM on Twitter. I haven't seen you in months. It's good to see you around, buddy. Yeah, I hate to break continuity like that, but I haven't seen John in it's been a minute. So, yeah, nice to see you, man. Where were we? Oh yeah, I was.
You were stomping all over my love of the music. Well, what about the rest of the music?
But I thought it served. I thought it served really well, and like that song works well in this movie. I'm
on the radio.
I'm over it. What can I say? I'm over the song. I know people are gonna like hate on me for it, and like I'm not trying to yuck your yum. If you like it, by all means. You know, music, like any other artist, subjective. People like what they like. I've never been a big fan of 80s pop.
I love the fact that I'm the one.
Except for Michael Jackson.
I love the fact that I'm the one defending an 80s pop song.
I mean,
on this.
not just any pop, new wave.
Down is up.
Pop, okay? It's a very niche genre.
Clara,
I
do.
Whoa.
This is a name I don't recognize, so I just wanted to say thank you for coming by. Nice to see you.
This is probably a good. This is probably a good time to mention that when I relaunch my channel, it's going to be the theme song for the opening, so you'll hear it every single time,
Wow.
Steve.
Okay.
Oh,
If you're going to spend the money to buy the rights to that song, I'm going to be like, dude, you deserve it. Yeah, no kidding. That guy had some 80s hair.
oh
The guy that sang the Neverending story.
Indeed, they did.
Anyway, so we usually like to spend most of our time talking about the things we really do like about the movie, though. So,
hey guys, I'm gonna hop out and hop back in because.
Okay. Well, yeah. I see. Aziz sent you. Thank you so much. Aziz, a good friend of mine. Love that guy. Aziz and Ashaya.
No, I have to say, like, it's such a surprise for me to be so enthusiastic about this, because I have not really, I had neither seen this movie since I was a kid, nor, like, to be honest, thought about it that much over the years. It's just one of those things that kind of was part of my childhood and then kind of, you know, dropped out of my awareness. And so to rewatch it and to feel all that childhood joy rushing back, it's wonderful. Everything okay, Christine?
Yeah, how's your audio?
It's messed up. I'm hearing a lot of echoes and things. So, I'm hearing. Oh wow. Yeah, I don't know if I've got it messed up from having the chat on, but I'm gonna exit the.
You probably need to mute the chat.
Okay.
On YouTube,
okay.
On
I
YouTube.
think I fixed it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I had two StreamYard windows open.
Oh.
So I was getting one delay and one. Yeah. Okay. I'm better now. Sorry, everybody. My apologies.
it's all good.
Yep.
So-
Yep.
Okay, so where were we? Because I missed most of that last few minutes.
We were still discussing the music, but I was just going to say, like, generally we prefer to talk about the things we do like about the movie, not like gag on the things we don't. We don't shy away from that, but like I always want to be more like, what about the good stuff? And
right.
Can I just
whereas on my channel, you know, I like to shit on everything.
Everything. Filled to the brim with negativity.
Yep. Never do a Keira Knightley film on your channel, then.
Yeah, I know.
I love the costuming.
Yeah, because I'm very negative about all things Keira Knightley. Yeah.
So I'll start with something. I don't know if anybody else who did identify with the film, who did sort of resonate with it, had this problem, because you two are dudes. But for me, it was hard because the only female character in the film is the childlike empress. And it was hard for me to identify with her because she's literally in an ivory tower, right? And not participating in anything because she's dying or whatever. And
well, we do also have the character at the Southern Oracle.
That's true. That's true.
So there was one more.
Right.
Yeah, like
that's true.
Troll Mama.
Right. Urgle. That was her name. Urgle.
Which is not great because her, husband or whatever keeps calling her wench. Which
to the wench. Wench.
Yeah, which I feel like the entire point of that was for that joke.
I kind of do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
not great. Like every time, like, and that we don't shy away from that either. Like we go, could have done better.
Yeah,
we could have done better.
And constantly telling her to shut up. So.
Yeah. Well, she was constantly telling him to shut up too.
Yeah, they weren't very cool.
Well,
they had this
to be very much reminded me of Princess Bride with
Mm-hmm.
with Billy Crystal and who's the actress? I can't remember.
I can't remember her name either, but I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of
it's gonna bother me now.
Yeah, they have this really great sort of like they're like super cantankerous with each other, but like they'd never be apart, you know, like an ancient couple who just hate each other but love each other to death, you know.
But I'm sorry, Christine, I brought that up and I completely interrupted you. So please go back to what you were saying.
Just that it was Atreyu that I identified with, and it was one of the first times that I'd ever like understood, you know, kind of this. There's no strong female characters who aren't this cantankerous, ugly old lady kind of thing going on, and so it was weird for me to growing up when I was little, because back then all the heroes were guys still.
Some of it is youth, but to me, Atreyu reads as very gender neutral.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even Bastian kind of does too.
I agree. And I think that is a choice being made there.
Interesting. It could be.
But at the end of the day, you know, they are still boys.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's, you know, but it's a, you know, I mean, it's a very valid criticism just of cinema in general to say, you know, not just 80s cinema, you know, but moving forward, you know, we're very much trying to do things about that now, but even now it's an uphill battle. So, but yeah, there's no escaping that, especially back then. It was like, this is a fantasy movie. It's catering to the boys. So
what if I believe the character is named Teeny Tiny, the guy that rides the racing steel? That could have been a woman character, and that's more representation, and would have been different than the Empress, and would have been different from the you know, but and you know, a woman who races snails. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say about that is maybe do it for the other little character, because I would not want to miss out on Deep Roy in this movie.
Yeah, he had a very interesting sort of accent to him. That was a, I don't know. It was an interesting choice. I think a lot of them have kind of a weird off accent where they don't speak like modern Americans do.
You do know that several of those characters are dubbed.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Because the actor that played Teeny Tiny and Nighthawk were both German-speaking actors.
Oh, okay.
And they were dubbed in English.
I see.
Now, they did a great job, but you can still tell.
Right. No, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, I noticed that there was something weird about their voices, and I assumed it was an accent, but maybe it was a non-sync with their performance and the...
Well, also, I just always kind of like in older films, there's often a lot of like they dub in dialogue. It's just something that I kind of expect. So it didn't pull me out of it. Like, ADR was not as smooth, you know, in older films as it is today, where it's, you know, extremely commonplace. So.
Yeah, it's hard to recreate the sort of like same sound quality even in two different studios. And you can hear it when you're watching stuff. You'll hear that one line that sounds like they're standing in the hallway.
Yeah. That's sure. Or like when they have to reshoot something and the light is coming from the other side, or like there's some weird inconsistency. And
yeah, the thing is, some of this can be forgiven because it's Fantasia.
Right.
You know?
But like, I mean, you'll find that in a lot of stuff. It's not a dubbing thing, but one of my favorite things, and like in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is where, Obi-Wan's changing haircut, where it's like all of a sudden he's got a flowing mane, and, and then it'll cut back to another shot and his hair is cut shorter. And that's like as a result of reshoots. Same thing with Gandalf in Return of the King. His beard is a bit different in certain shots than in others. It's one of those things that even in like big, huge productions, things aren't perfect. It's just one of those things that it's movie making. It's
right.
See, I don't notice things like that. That just goes right over me. If I'm into the story, if I'm into the plot, if I am into what's going on, that's background noise to me. So.
Oh, and the only reason I notice like inconsistencies with something like on Lord of the Rings is because, as you guys know, I watched them like 500 billion times.
I didn't know that, John.
I've heard you might be a fan.
Yeah, tiny bit.
Can I chime in with a tiny little bit of weird trivia that I learned from my dad? So the childlike empress, the actress who played her, she has a Persian father, and he had, after she did the project, he forbade her from pursuing her acting career. And so she went on to become a dance instructor, which, she's got that neck, that ballerina sort of physique. But yeah, I found that really interesting that, she had this thing happen where she had to like completely take a jarring left turn for her life. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because I found that out.
Well, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Because that reminds me of what I was going to say earlier when I actually brought up Atreyu, I don't know, 5 minutes ago or something, is that the actors for Atreyu, who is a guy called Noah Hathaway.
No relation.
Right. And then the actress for the childlike empress, Tammy Stronach, were both so good in this movie. Now the childlike empress is really only in one scene at the end. Now she shares the scene with Atreyu and then with Bastion.
Right.
So I'll just say it's two scenes back to back, but man, does she carry some emotional weight.
Well, not only that, but she comports herself with this very sort of regal adult air, right? And it's interesting because she's the childlike empress. She's not a child empress. She's just childlike. And so the idea that she may not be a child actually, but she just looks like one is it's an interesting thought. Ancient. Right. Maybe she's been there for a very long time. Especially if she just keeps getting especially if she just keeps getting a new name every time,
Right. I was looking up the credits for this film and noticed that she had barely had anything listed, and it's just sad because I agree that like it was kind of shocking to me that she's only in really one scene at the end of the film, because as I said before, I remembered very little about this movie, but I remembered her, and she just makes such an impact coming in and at that final point of the film, and as you guys said, carries such wonderful dramatic weight. So,
and Noah Hathaway, the actor for Atreyu, has got a lot to do in this movie. Was he 10 or 11 when he made this film?
Right. Yeah. He carried so much of the story. And there was I don't know. I mean, it's really jam packed. I noticed this about the pace of the story is just boom, 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 like plot point, plot point. It just moves forward so quickly, and there's very little context, but it doesn't really have to have that big thing, because like every line of dialogue and every frame, all of the information that's being conveyed in each frame of the film, it's like this mercenary efficiency of storytelling, and it allows it to go that quickly so that it's only 92 minutes long.
I know. I was shocked at the runtime. It packs a lot in that time.
It sure does. It sure does.
Yeah, I think maybe Nessie just was like waiting to get caught up in the story,
maybe
the way a child might, and it didn't happen.
Just didn't happen.
But like, it has already done that for me when I watched it 50 times when I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah, maybe probably more like 15 or 20, but still a bunch of times as a kid.
Yeah.
I remember that the actor, Noah Hathaway, because I'd seen him in other things. You know, I do remember him from most notably Battlestar Galactica, the OG version, which, you know, I was glued to the television set every Sunday evening to watch. So, I mean, I recognized him as an actor, just like, I mean, he carried the movie, in my opinion. You know, he was a solo act, and, you know, he had a whole lot of work to do. And for a kid, that was quite a big job for him.
Right. And he didn't have a whole lot. Right. And he didn't have a whole lot of input either, because, you know, the first part of his journey, he's playing off of a horse, you know, and like, I mean, he had Artax was a great character, even though we didn't, you know,
I identified with Artax, you know, I got about to the swamp and gave up too.
Yep.
So, I was like, I'm going down with the ship, guys. That's it.
That's so funny.
I'm just
kidding.
No,
it's funny. But
talking about the runtime again, though, it's like, you know, I was actually surprised that Artax goes so like relatively early in the film, because the memory of that, you know, was sort of like that it was after a lengthy time. But when you're watching movies as a kid, your like concept of time and length of a movie is different. It reminds me of when I recently went back to watch The Land Before Time, and that's such a brief movie. I don't even know if it reaches 70 minutes. But as a kid, it felt like this big epic journey.
Right.
So yeah, it's just funny the way time registers with you as a kid.
I mean, getting an 8-year-old to sit still for an hour and a half to watch a movie is pretty much of a feat.
Yes.
Yeah. I know, but
kids are used to watch. Oh, sorry, Christine.
No, it's okay.
I was just gonna say, kids are kind of maybe used to longer and longer run times now, but you know, this was kind of our attention span in the 80s, I guess.
Well, they've always made movies longer than this, but they understood that their target audience was children.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's not mistake it. The target audience is children, not children and grown-ups, not a family movie in that way. This is really, I think, targeted at children more directly. But it's done so well. Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. If they weren't trying to draw on the adult viewers, there would probably be less boobs in this movie.
But no, I think the things that we talked about with like the themes and so those are the things that I didn't pick up on as a kid, and I wouldn't expect, you know, any kids to. But I think that there's things that very much do appeal to adult viewers in this on a like storytelling level. It's easy for us, I think, to look at it now because it's very, you know, as we've established, it's a very 80s movie. But yeah, I don't know. I would place it in the family category, Stephen. Not just for kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will fight about it later. Like, I challenge you to a duel.
In a steel cage. So one last thing about the pacing of the film, where I noticed so much that it was not like the Fellowship of the Ring at all, where they slog through all of the, okay, we're hiking and now we're going through a field and now we're going to stop for breakfast. And well,
there was some nice scenery. There was some nice scenery shots. Yeah. I did like that. They were quick travelogue type things.
Right. And it was all done in this big montage where he's like riding his horse through a thing and he's riding his horse down the plains and then he's riding his horse this way. And my son, I watched it after the day we agreed on it, Stephen, where I watched it with my 5-year-old and all he could say is, can't he ever stop riding his horse? That's all he could say.
Spoiler alert, he does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, bet you're gonna wish you had bet you wish you had wanted something else, huh?
I mean, I'm just gonna say I can't believe I just heard Lord of the Rings referred to as a slog.
No, I meant the travel part of it where you get to slog with them. It's not like this, not the reading was a slog, but the journey, the characters felt the journey and we felt it with them. Whereas we didn't ride with Atreyu for 8 straight days.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's all I was saying. Sorry to be misunderstood. But yeah, and there was that scene where they did stop to eat, and he was like, "No, lunch is a great idea."
One bite of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I know. I thought it was like ham and cheese. Oh well.
No, because he made it at the table that morning. You get
that's right.
Peanut butter and Smucker's jelly and Wonder Bread.
Wow.
On the breakfast table.
It's awesome that you noticed that, Nessie, because it completely escaped me. Like I didn't notice the product placement or the peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Did you notice that Dad's breakfast is orange juice with an egg?
Oh, I know.
It was disgusting. Right beside the Stavka instant coffee.
It was so gross. My 5-year-old was like, "Is he gonna drink that?"
Yeah. It's a very adult breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Yay for salmonella.
Can I just say that the actor who plays the father, his name is Gerald McCraney.
Yeah, Gerald McCraney, Major Dad.
No, see, that's not what I know him from. I know him from Deadwood, where he is like seriously the most despicable of characters, and so I hated him immediately. I was like, this is not a good father.
Well, I mean, I have to kind of agree with you there because his dad, I mean, I'm sure he's a great provider. Their house is very nice. They have no shortage of food, blah, 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 whatever. He's going to get him horse riding lessons. But his dad doesn't know him at all. Right.
He has no clue.
He doesn't acknowledge the kid's grief. He doesn't he doesn't know the difference between a horse and a unicorn. He doesn't get that this is who his kid is. You know what I mean? And he just kind of pays lip service to being attentive.
I mean,
it's sad.
Why can't you just get over your mother's death and stop having fantasies, 9-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah. Join the swim team. Get over it.
Right. Exactly. And I don't know if any of you know this, but the character, he's actually terrified of swimming and diving specifically. This is something that comes up in the book, and also in the second movie.
I had a vague recollection of that from what I remember of the second movie.
Right. But he's got this phobia, and his dad is like, I'm really disappointed that you didn't go out for the swim team. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm really just going to continue doing this funny thing with my fingers. And, But yeah, it's sad that they're stuck with each other because I don't think either one of them gets the other at all.
Yeah, well, like, and the movie leaves you, because one of the thoughts I had when he's like flying down the street on Falcor is like, you still live with that man from the beginning of the movie, right?
Oh, no, right?
Yeah.
You've got to go home to that and explain where you were all night, where you skipped school. Like, enjoy your Luck Dragon ride because.
Yeah.
Well, but Steven,
you're grounded.
That's not to worry about now because that's another story.
You're right. It is another story.
Well done. So,
which, like, by the way, like, even if I know there were intentions to do like a sequel like much sooner than they did, and like it was left open for a sequel, but that whole thing of that's another story, that is such an 80s thing.
It really is.
You know?
Yeah, it really is.
And I love it, even if you look at it as like a standalone film, which you should probably. You know, that brings with it that charm of 80s movies, just like the end of like Conan the Barbarian, but that's another story, and you know, and that whole thing. So I really enjoy that.
I wonder if Michael Ende, the author of the book, I wonder if he got that from Conan the Barbarian, if that's something that was in the Conan books as well as the film, if that's where they got it. I don't know. I'm just curious. I wouldn't know.
I do know from reading up on this that the author absolutely hated the movie.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, no.
Hated it.
Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad.
Especially hated the Southern Oracle and the gates because of the breasts.
Oh, right. Yeah, there is that. I was wondering what breasts you were talking about. But yeah, there was certainly a few pairs.
There's quite a few breasts in this movie if you want to get there are more breasts than there are women characters to put them on.
Yeah, there are.
Well, that's not a stretch.
My God.
Yeah. But yeah. Wow, that's what a realization to have.
Yeah, I can remember being, even as a little kid. Yeah, it's fun. Even as a little kid, I felt like cheated that they used the same statues for the Southern Oracle as they did for the first gate. I was so mad. I'm like, can't you just come up with a different one?
That was the one thing that like really bothered me. Actually,
yeah, made me mad.
I was like, wait.
Literally,
what?
It should have just been a sphinx, not a statue. Just like, here's a sphinx. Come up on the rock. I'm going to tell you some stuff. Here's what you do. No.
But aren't those the same? What?
No, these ones are blue.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Oh, that's the difference.
I want to. I popped this up on the screen a couple times. I want to talk about this for a second, then we'll hit the mid-roll. You're right. He did not return the book, although, you know.
He left a note saying he would.
I figured he would.
We don't know that.
Okay?
Right. We don't. I didn't know that the book that he was in Vancouver. I did not know that. But I will say, as soon as he was in the bookstore, I thought of you, Kate. Like, seriously, while watching this film, and he was in that bookstore with all those stacks of old musty books, I'm like, this is where Kate works.
Exactly what I thought.
Can I just say that the bookstore owner was really freaking creepy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I kept telling Bastion, like, call an adult.
Yeah.
Captain Nemo with the giant squid attacking you. Yeah, he had a weird cadence to his voice.
He just leaves it there like bait, like, hi, this is not for you,
This
child.
book is not for you.
Yes.
While I go into the other room.
Through the window. You know?
Yeah, it was
and then the
genius.
grin and nod too. I'm just like, this is a little bit too much, but like,
Is that Jack Nicholson just doing the nod? You know? I'm like, what's going on here?
So I on the subject of the bookstore owner, so his name was Cornelius something Coriander, and it was all 3 C's, right? And then you've got Bastian Balthazar Bucks, which is all 3 B's. So you assume that the next kid is going to be, I don't know what.
David Daniel Dunbury.
No. It's going backwards. It went from C to B. So the next one's going to be
Aaron.
Anthony, Aaron.
Oh, I was going to go with Awesome for a middle name, but
Anderson. I don't know, but yeah. So and then the other implication is that it's been going on for a while, right? At least 24 other times.
I hadn't thought of that.
It's because they had to have started from somewhere, and why not the end of the alphabet and going forwards like that? I just find it really interesting. And then also, like, what happens after A? Like, do they start over, or do they have to come up with a new system?
That's where the end of the time loop paradox ends. Which
gotcha.
For many of us was 2020.
Right. Yes.
Because we had to wait for Bastion to grow up, buy a bookstore, and then give it to the
you guys. I think you guys are thinking way too hard
about it. All right. You know what? Let's do the mid-roll. Shall we do?
Huzzah.
Okay.
Oh my God, we're already an hour in. I can't believe I've been having such a fun time.
Yeah, you know what we do here. We have fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the mid-roll. Mid meaning middle. We still have another hour to go. We are all content creators and would like you to watch our stuff. That being said, guest first again. Oh, excuse me. Christine, what have you been working on? What's coming up?
So I have a podcast called the Nevernever podcast. It's about the Dresden Files. I just finished the first book, Stormfront, and I am on to book 2, Full Moon, and we're doing I'm working on the second episode of that one, which is episode 11, not counting the Mythology of Mab bonus episode that I was working on the last time I came on here. And yeah, so that one's still being written, but I'm towards the end of it, so it shouldn't be more than a week before it comes out. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at on the podcast. Never podcast.
Nice. And okay, forgive my ignorance, but Dresden is a wizard?
Yes, he
is. Okay,
I
thought so. So 3 dragons in the
Chicago. The Wizard of Chicago.
Right.
Yes.
3 wizards, or a wizard and 3 dragons on this stream. I like it. We should branch out our, we like reaching outside the friend group.
So.
Four dragons, Stephen.
4 dragons, because we got Falcor here too.
Yeah.
He's right there.
I have one tattooed on my back, if that counts.
I've got one tattooed on my shoulder. There's all kinds of extras around, I guess.
Nice.
Nessie, what do you got coming up?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm on vacation, Stephen. For the next 2 weeks, I am on vacation out of here.
We'll ask you again in 2 weeks then. John, what do you got coming up?
And Nessie, just nothing? Is it a hole?
A hole would be something.
It's a whole lot of nothing is what it is. But I've got a huge backlog of content. So, feel free to watch some 3-hour episodes that will, fill out your time.
Nice.
Got some great stuff in the vault. So
y'all are on my time now.
Uh-oh.
It's a ghost.
It's that evil spirit.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Wrong movie, still love it.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, if you want to see a discussion of that movie, head over to my channel, because a number of weeks ago, we did a discussion of that movie. It was a lot of fun. As for what's ahead, so yeah, that's more complicated. Things have not been super great. No need to elaborate. Most of the people in here, know a bit about what's been going on, but my channel is kind of at a standstill for the moment. I'm genuinely hoping to start up again at some point, not too far down the line. I don't know for sure. I'm just kind of playing it by ear, but I would like to do a stream maybe in a couple weeks to a month on the next batch of Bad Batch episodes.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm hoping to I had the pleasure of having Christina Lady Triple and Mr. Lady Triple Brian on to talk about the pilot episode and also the second episode. And so I'm hoping to get them back for the next discussion, but it's still like in the planning stages. So I'll let you guys know. For now, though, I'm just kind of slowing down and taking my time. So, but yeah, you guys will know when we're picking back up.
And we'll hype it up here too. But you'll always, not always, Nessie, you're here basically every other week due to your work schedule, but you guys are still here with me as much as you can be, which I really love. I love having you guys on. But having just said that, neither of you is going to be on next week because I'm doing it. I Know That Nerd.
Ooh.
With a very special guest, not somebody you have all heard of, but most of you have never met. I know, terribly mysterious. It's actually my oldest child will be my guest for I Know That Nerd. The setup will look something like this. I will be sitting here. She will be sitting there. And we will be having a 2-hour conversation like I do on I Know That Nerd. And she is a really big nerd in her own right. Loves anime, Magic the Gathering, Avatar the Last Airbender, the stuff we talk about here. She's my nerdiest child, as well as my oldest.
Nice.
Then the week after that, season 5 of the Clone Wars, we are accelerating our coverage of it because I want to catch up now. I'm hooked. I'm in. We're not waiting 6 months between seasons anymore. We're going because we did one. It'll be. Was it 2 weeks ago we did one? And then it was like a month before that when we did season 3. So, yeah, season 5 in 2 weeks. After that, not sure. But Loki is starting up before long. So we'll be covering Loki when it comes out on Disney Plus as well.
I will say I'm glad that actually you're doing, the I Know That Nerd episode next week because it gives me time to, do my rewatch for for season 5 of Clone Wars without feeling the need to cram it all in at the last
minute. Right. Yeah, got to make sure we shout out the patrons as well. Our Patreon High Council is Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, Sixto Sounds, aka JP the Axe Grinder, and of course, ridiculous Ed Tollett, our alpha patron. We love you guys so much, so very, very much. And they are backed up by the lords and ladies of the realm. Lady Leaf Underhill, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Aemy Blackfyre, lover of poles, and Reflective Rambling. We love you. We also love you very, very much, but just not quite as much as the other ones because they paid us more.
Wow.
Yeah. No, genuinely, that
viewer count drops.
Nobody can buy my love. It's appreciated, but everybody's welcome here, and you all know that. Also, I want to bring up Con of Thrones just for a minute, okay? Because it would basically be in about 2 months. John and Nessie and I are, in theory, going to all be there. Although I have talked to Sue the Fury recently, who is like the lady in charge of making it happen. And at this point, it's still unclear whether or not it's happening. So make plans for that at your own discretion. If there is no Con of Thrones, we will be doing Here Be Con probably in the fall sometime. If there is a Con of Thrones, we'll probably be doing Here Be Con maybe February, March next year. But we are having a Here Be Dragons get together. Many of us have talked about it privately, but I wanted to just put it out there. Everybody who watches this is invited. We do need to know how many, because we're probably going to try to get a couple of, or a really big Airbnb, basically. Be a good time. But yeah, if anybody's interested in that, join the Slack group. How do you join the Slack group? You send me an email. Where do you send me an email? Right here, we3dragons@gmail.com.
The promise of Here Be Con is the only thing that keeps me from going mad.
Yeah.
Because like if Con of Thrones doesn't happen, then thank God we're gonna do that.
Right. It'll be a couple of months later, but like,
because I need to see all you guys.
Right. Well, part of it is I want to do it in Texas, in my state, where I don't have to go very far, But and let's face it, October in Texas or March in Texas is much, much nicer than August in Texas.
That's true. That is a true fact.
But anyway, I wanted everybody to keep that in mind. We have been keeping an eye out. We really hope Con of Thrones does happen, but if it doesn't, don't fret too much, because we'll be just doing our own thing. All right, where are we at? We were talking about the Neverending story, unless there's something I forgot to bring up.
No, not for me anyway.
I don't think so. Patreon shout-outs. Yeah, okay, let's go. Neverending story.
Just letting Kate know that Texas in October is probably delightful weather for a Canadian.
Yes, probably so.
Yeah, I live in Arizona. It's kind of similar here. So it's August in Arizona is just god awful.
Miserable.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But does anybody have anything that they want to start with? Because I have notes still that we.
Okay, please. You know what? You spoke up. It's on you now.
All right, cool. So did anybody notice at the very beginning the clouds, and how the dark cloud was kind of spreading throughout the beautiful clouds all throughout the opening credits?
I noticed clouds. I don't know that I noticed spreading darkness.
Yeah, if you look, like, the clouds are really beautiful at first, and then just in the corner of one shot, there's like a little storm cloud, and then it gets bigger and darker and blacker and then huge, and then it's covering the sky. And it's really cool because it's, this visual representation of the nothing coming and coming to swallow us all. So that was just something I noticed.
And I do want to bring up, like, I'm not dunking on the film's representation of the nothing, because film is a visual medium. You have to show something. But I really do love what I'm reading so far in the book, that the nothing is basically just what it sounds like. It's nothing. It's this notion that you can't even see, like, what you're not seeing. It's like this emptiness.
That's exactly what Gamork said. It is the absence of hope. That is what the nothing really is. Because the nothing is destroying Fantasia, and Fantasia is the hopes and dreams of humanity.
Right.
It is.
I was also fascinated by something somebody said earlier. I think it was you, John, who you were saying about is the Nothing the bad guy, or is Gmork the bad guy?
No, that was Steven.
Oh, that was Steven. Sorry, I apologize.
It was. Look, it sounded smart. I understand why you thought John said it.
No.
Steven.
So I just noticed, like, the Nothing to me seems like a totally amoral, and I don't mean, poorly moral. I mean, like, without morals entirely, like just a storm or something. And it's partly because of the clouds. I've always looked at it as a natural phenomenon. But then it's got this Gmork guy who shows up, and every time his face comes on screen, you get those crazy strings that, and he works for the Nothing, I guess, which means that the Nothing isn't.
He works for the thing that sent the Nothing.
Ah, okay. See, I've missed that. I missed that there was a thing that sent the Nothing.
Gmork's got a good bit of exposition for a, slavering beast.
Right. No, I know. He turns out to be like a much more useful mentor character than any of the other mentor characters for Atreyu. Because he actually tells him something real.
Well, I'm actually interested to get to that part in the book to see, like, how that is, or if it differs, because it's much more explicit in the book that what's causing the Nothing. It's not just that because the Nothing is happening that the Empress is sick. It's that Fantasia flourishes because of the Empress, and because she's sick, it's all of this is happening. It's it's basically it's sort of like the King Arthur thing, of the
land is wounded because the ruler is wounded for the land. Yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah, I'm interested to see how that is, because they did seem to simplify a number of elements for the film, which I perfectly understand. But it does make me interested to read more of that stuff in the book and see if it expands on on where Gmork comes from and what what the Nothing is, or where it comes from. And so yeah, I'm really interested to read further in the book now.
It's good. I'll just say that.
I think you really hit the nail on the head when you described it as amoral too.
Right.
Because it's not immoral. It's not evil.
It just does what it does.
It is almost, it feels like a force of nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it really does.
Anna says, where is it?
It was a great
thought. A metaphor for Bastian's trauma.
Yes, right here.
Absolutely. Go, Anna.
Yes,
that is spot on.
It's a metaphor. It is, but it's also because you can apply the story to Bastian, but like any good story, you can apply it to yourself as well.
So it's a metaphor for whatever it is that making you hopeless.
Exactly. Taking away your hope and your dreams. Some of that is just growing up.
Right.
But as the four of us can attest, we make podcasts and videos about the stuff that's imaginary that we love. Yeah. So there's something very powerful about that metatextual engagement that we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. We're analyzing how it relates to us, and Bastian is analyzing how he relates to Atreyu in the story, down to the fact that like the second gate is literally looking in a mirror and Atreyu seeing Bastian. I'm really interested to hear how that's sort of handled in the book itself. How is that written? Because there's a few things in here that are really just so good about the way they parallel the storytelling. I really love it. There's cheesy bits. There's bits that I'm not in love with, but overall, I just am so impressed with how they told a story within a story about the power of story.
Yes.
And
And
about
include the reader in that power.
Right. Yeah. Like the most powerful thing that can be done is to give a name to your hope. And there's always, and to have a hope or a dream, even if it's one small thing that you hold in your hand when everything else has been taken away from you, if you hold on to that and you still reach for it, it grows from there. Mm-hmm. Which is like I'm not in love with the last 2 minutes of this film, riding Falcor and chasing bullies into the dumpster, and okay, fine, that's all fine and good. To me, it could have ended with him, on Falcor, and that could have cut right there. Would have been fine with that. But because to me, the real impact of the movie is the Empress delivering her final monologue in blackness to Bastion about
call my name.
Yeah. Well, but sitting there after he had already called her name,
I see.
And her monologue about the power of continuing to have hope. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, all things were taken away, but as long as you continue to dream, as long as you continue to have hopes for the future, because that's what grief is a lot of things. It's love persevering, as Vision taught us this year, which, by the way, beautiful moment. Go watch WandaVision if you haven't seen it. Fantastic. But
I'll see about doing that.
Grief is about loss. A lot of it is about loss. And he had to lose things, and Atreyu had to lose things to make the story apparent to Bastion, so he could feel the grief and the healing from that story, which is something that the stories that we love the most do for us. Why do I love Luke Skywalker? Because everything he does is easy and he's successful the first time he tries anything? No. He loses things along the way, but he keeps coming back. He keeps getting up. Just like Sam's speech at the end of Two Towers. About people had a lot of chances to give up, only they didn't. That's the sort of thing that fuels us when we're going through our real world grief. All right, I'm going to shut up now. I've been talking.
Well, I do want to follow up on what you're saying, Stephen, because I do get asked by people if I just like being punished in my entertainment, because I like stuff like, now granted, there's some stuff that's so like down and dark that it makes me depressed to go through it. I will never watch Requiem for a Dream a second time, because that made me just want to die. But I do enjoy a lot of stuff that's tough to go through, that it's sad and that characters suffer and they go through things that are emotionally draining for me, and people often are like, why do you enjoy doing that to yourself?
Because I want to feel things.
Yeah, because I want to feel, and it's redemptive to come out the other end of that.
Cathartic.
Yes, a great word.
Yeah, and so I absolutely agree. Like, that speech from Sam would be nothing without everything that they've gone through up to that point. It's but no, I like to go on an emotional journey, and that doesn't always mean a happy emotional journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I pick up really quickly? What you were talking about with the nothing being hopelessness, and then that one little grain that's left that the nothing didn't destroy, that being the hope. I also think, because she was talking about how, all you have to do is dream, and you can dream the whole world back into existence. And in a way, if you're talking about, grief and trauma and hopelessness being that, then the grain is also the ability to remember, because as long as you remember, they're still there. They're still with you. And so, for Bastion, remembering his mom, even though his dad won't acknowledge it, remembering and having dreams about his mom is his way of keeping her alive, which calling her name and all of that stuff. I thought that was really, really sweet.
Which, by the way, I also want to say, jumping back a couple minutes, Stephen, when you were talking about not being in love with the last 2 minutes of the movie and where you might have ended it. Actually, I can see a version of this movie where they were able to pick up like immediately and do a sequel where the ending is, the Empress telling Bastian to wish for something, and he says, "I know what I'm going to wish for," and then cut to black and music. And I think that would be a beautiful ending for the end of this. But I but the fact that they wanted to it was only half the story, so they wanted to give some moment, and which is of course Bastian getting back at his bullies, which any kid can watch and feel good about. But again, that's why I'm really looking forward to reading the book, because there's a whole second half of this story that goes in place of that. So.
Yeah.
But I will say, teaching people to bullies are often bullies because of their own home situations, and children shouldn't be terrorized. I don't think it's a good message to tell kids what you should really be wishing for right now is some vengeance. But it is what it is. I understand it.
It's very tempting, though.
It is tempting. Hey, man, it's not like I've never wanted to take vengeance on somebody, but there's the first thing you need to do when you set out on a path of revenge is to dig 2 graves. Didn't they make a forgettable sequel? They made 2 forgettable sequels.
I've not even seen number 3.
I never saw the third one, so
I haven't either. Apparently, Jack Black is in it.
Oh no!
Oh dear, that sounds.
And I like Jack Black.
Oh, I love Jack Black.
Thematically, that's just wrong.
So he's probably 19 in that movie or something, or even younger. I saw a picture, and I'm like, that is a young Jack Black. And young in Hollywood, you say yes, whatever the movie, yes.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I've seen the second one, and was it forgettable? Yeah, I thought so. I did not really enjoy it, even when I was a kid.
I just remember that Jonathan Brandis was in it. That's that's about it. But like I said, I have almost sort of a instinctual memory of it, and it's I know that, even like I said before, even though I enjoyed it as a kid, I know not to go back to it. It's just one of those gut feelings that you have.
I was about to put that up on the screen too. I could probably get into that.
Yeah, because in this movie, the sort of existential threat is the nothing.
Mm-hmm.
In the second one, I believe it's the emptiness.
Wow, that's original.
And then I think in the third movie, it's the nasty.
Oh,
really? The 12 stages of grief or something? Where's the angry thing going to be?
Right? Where's the bargaining monster?
Right. Yeah. I love that. That's great. I need a bargaining monster now. Okay.
So we haven't talked that much about Falcor.
Yeah.
We haven't. Are you sure you want to do this?
Oh no! Why do you have bad thoughts?
Okay, look at that. Falcor is beautiful.
Yes.
Until he moves, and then he is kind of creepy.
His face was really, really well articulated and animated. I thought that the fact that they were able to flare nostrils and give him these totally not mechanical looking blinks, I thought was really cool. but
maybe it was just sort of an uncanny valley thing for me. He was just not quite life. He was too lifelike, but not quite lifelike enough for my brain to decide one way or the other.
But again, I like. But see, this is the thing. My brain automatically goes. This was 1984. I expect some of that with effects and all that. Like
my counterpunch is Rotjay, Return of the Jedi, which I will forever refer to as Rotjay from now on. For reasons related to calling House of the Dragon Hot D.
Right.
Rotjay.
Or Clash of Kings, ACOG.
Like the Rancor,
I don't know her.
The Rancor in Return of the Jedi looks fantastic. And
okay, this was not did not have George Lucas.
You're right. It would have been better if they did.
Nor the budget. I mean, they could have hired ILM to do, Bastion, but that would have been, to do Falcor, but.
Did ILM exist in 1984 yet?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You got me there. It didn't look anything like the real life giant flying dogs.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing: like, you don't even really appreciate good puppetry.
I am not a fan of the medium. I love the
exactly.
Muppets. I love the Muppets, but I probably love the Muppets because I grew up with them. But puppets in general can sometimes enter the uncanny valley for me, and I can be put off by it,
Okay, then I don't care.
Well, but
I said good day, sir.
I did like the first scene where Bastion wakes up. He's all curled up next, with the giant puppy dog. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Atreyu, Nessie. Atreyu.
Yeah, Atreyu, whatever. They're the same thing.
She's not wrong, actually.
I'm not wrong. They're the same thing. Yeah, when he's curled up with the puppy, and he wakes up, all his wounds are clear. He's got no more mud on him or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's a very comforting scene because, waking up with, that's a great way to wake up. Curled up, snuggled up next to a big giant dog like that. Yeah, that's okay. I was okay with that.
Okay.
Not so much the flying. Not so much the flying. He was a little too snake-like for me. But
people are like starting to rail on me for my okay, when I say Muppets, I'm kind of more talking about that anthropomorphic, that style. Big Bird's fine. Elmo's fine. But puppets get looking a little too real, and there's some uncanny valley for me.
Right.
Part of what I experienced watching The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance.
Here we go.
Well, John, I kind of came around on that show, and I did.
You didn't finish it.
I didn't finish it, but I watched it. I watched a good bit of it, and I never fully got over the puppet thing. It's just, and that's me. That's on me. I'm not trying to say it's bad, but Falcor in a still shot is gorgeous. The character design is fantastic.
I love the voicing for him too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do I have against Jeff Dunham? Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I actually I do not care for Jeff Dunham, for the record, either. But
neither do I.
I was okay with Gremlins, which came out kind of around the same time frame.
Yeah, but they're not.
Anyway.
They were terrifying.
They turn into freaking monsters.
Okay. But Falcor, as a character concept, as a character design, the audio, the voice acting for him, fantastic character.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really do like the character, but there are times when I'm looking at it and I'm just going, ugh.
Yeah.
See, and I was so
I wish I could
in the story and the character dynamics and everything. That I just it worked for me.
It's what I don't know how to say. John, I'm sorry. I hate to go over you, but he made me laugh. It was funny. Please continue.
No, I'm done.
Okay. That laugh was at I don't know, not you.
So the last thing that I have to say about Falkor is just that that he also has an interesting sort of downward character arc, because he starts out as this like totally confident, like, oh, it'll all work out, Hakuna Matata, you know, like this
I'm a
very
luck dragon.
yeah, it'll happen with luck, you know. And then towards the end, you know, he couldn't, like, they lost each other in that storm, and he was screaming for his friend Atreyu, and like, you know, I mean, he found the Orin and everything, but still, it was just this downward thing where towards the end of you know, Atreyu being the main character, his storyline, everybody was at this low, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. They really did need the rah! They really did need that at the end. So
John, tell me about why Falkor is better than I gave him credit for just now.
I mean, like, it seems to me your only issues are from an effects.
Yeah, they really are.
Perspective, and for me, like, first of all, I like, even though you're gonna hold up like top of the line Lucasfilm puppetry as, you know, as the counterpoint,
the Rancor,
which I think is unfair, but like, I'm so drawn in by the story and the friendship that develops between Atreyu and Falkor that any shortcomings with the, you know, the actual puppetry don't really matter all that much to me. It works well enough for me, and so I like what Christine was just talking about, the parts where, you know, they're looking for each other and he's crying out Atreyu. It's so emotional to me, and so, like, yeah, I love the character, and I love the, like, I think Nessie said she didn't like the sort of Snape-like, you know, but flying through the air. I actually love that as a visual. I thought it was, amazing.
Okay. I didn't get the off-puttingness that Stephen does from the anthropomorphic puppetry.
So I'll be honest.
Valley. I don't get that. I get it more from, like, Child's Play, Chucky. That doll freaks me the hell out. I will not watch those movies. Anything with dolls in it, that bothers me. That crosses my line. But the flying puppy dog really didn't bother me. It's just like the precursor to, you know, Appa. So flying buffalo, flying dog, just shrunk up a little bit. It's cool, you know.
Not a bad point.
I'm good with it.
I will say this movie does have great character design, great set design, great costuming, like visually. Some of the effects, I mean, they don't hold up. Let's just be honest. Some of the effects don't hold up.
Yeah.
But they were working with the technology and in the budget they had at the time. Like, my problems with puppetry are always going to be what they are. But, like, I mean, I love that look. Just look at him. What a fantastic, beautiful character design. I love it. And the fact that you could do so much with a character that's basically just all white fur is really...
He's got those pearl scales. Yeah, I like that part of him. I always thought it was cool.
Visually, it's pretty nice to look at. Even in the Swamp of Sadness with the scene with Morla, like,
I love the way when she was about to sneeze, how her eyes would, like, go around. And
they go, like, sideways.
It was really funny.
Which, like, and I think that Morla is like the personification of, like, the adult world who doesn't care about imagination and storytelling.
So Morla was his dad, basically.
Yeah, and
maybe Morla is somewhat. She's also made it very clear that she's very separate from every other person in her life. She's not part of anybody else's story anymore. She hasn't spoken to anybody else in thousands of years. So she's not really part of the never-ending story anymore because she's isolated herself. She is not interacting with the rest of Fantasia, which is, the dreams and the hopes for the future.
I think she's what happens when you
when you get old and fatalistic.
When you just decide that imagination is not something worth indulging in, and you, I think, my view on it is without imagination and without storytelling, it becomes just as you go on, you don't know why you're going on. And that's this whole thing of where she says, we don't even care that we don't care.
We don't even care whether or not we care.
And that is like, full on, that sort of version of adulthood where it's all serious business and you don't, no time for anything that's not practical and and that type of thing. So I actually went back to rewatch a little bit of the movie this morning, and I picked up on that. And and the whole you're right, Christine. The whole thing with the eyes and the thing is just hilarious. And I like that it's like an almost sneeze, and then Atreyu's like, okay.
And then flying off the branch. Yeah.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. It looks like fun to jump in that mud. As long as I can take a shower right afterwards, I'd jump in that mud. It looks like fun.
You'd be all over it before it was all over you.
But I also love I love jumping off the diving board into the pool. I'm not a diver by any means, but just that feeling of jump and you're not going to get hurt. Splat, I don't know. It looked like fun.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's funny, Kate. You could also look at Maura as all of us, after 2020.
Right.
Yep. Behold the fields of where I grow my fucks, and note that they are fallow.
And it is barren.
It is barren.
Oh man.
To me, she is that person that has lost. That she's still alive, but she has no reason to live anymore. Like she's just like, I'm just gonna wait for the nothing to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, she doesn't even care whether she's waiting or not.
Right. Well, I'd call her a nihilist, except that she's too apathetic and callous to want to bring it all down, like she hates it. She's tired of it. She's so sleepy.
She's just looking for the entropy to take over.
Yes. Yes.
She's like, I'm here.
I'm too old. When do I get to die?
And I find that is a great reflection on what Rockbiter said at the end, where he's like, I'm just going to sit here and wait for it to take me. He's talking, they look like good, big, strong hands, don't they? But that is, Morla is very different in that she made her decision a long time ago and she's just waiting for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Rockbiter has, in that moment, his loss is overwhelming them.
Well, the grief is so fresh and raw, and he's how useless am I? It's again this theme of helplessness and loss, where they look like big strong hands, don't they? And that always broke my heart every single time. From the first time I saw it at 3 years old, it made me cry. So. Because he just sounded so forlorn and so like, bitch, hurry up, you late.
Well, I mean, Morla is she's in the middle of the swamp of despair.
The swamp of sadness.
Sadness, whatever. And she's just like exuding all this out into the mud. Like she is the swamp. Everybody, you get in the swamp, you give up hope, you just get sucked down in the mud. And you're just going to be there.
Right. And she's just too big to drown in it.
Right.
So.
He's just there, creating all of the despair and the you just the willingness to give up and
I guess I just made the connection. She is wallowing in the swamp of sadness.
Yeah.
So like she has placed herself in the middle of her metaphorical sadness.
And the way that she deals with that is by not giving a fuck.
By withdrawing into her shell.
Yeah.
Having nothing to do with anybody else.
Nothing. Yeah.
Ooh, nicely done, Stephen.
She's a turtle. It wasn't that big a stretch, actually.
Wasn't a big stretch.
But I didn't notice it myself until just now.
So can we, before we have to end, can we talk about Artax, please?
Yes. We are talking about the swamp of sadness. So I feel like Artax is something we should talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, like, Atreyu loses his friend and he feels totally helpless. Again, helplessness and loss. And like his friend just succumbs. And we are not really given any reason why, but we don't really need one because like we've all lost someone and been helpless to save them, right? Whether they died or, of old age or an accident or whatever it is. Like, or we lost someone to a big move. They moved to Utah and you don't see them anymore or whatever. But with Artax, it's more like losing someone to depression. Yeah, it still hurts.
Yeah, it felt like suicide to me.
Yeah,
Suicide.
Yeah, absolutely, where they just gave up and could not move another inch anymore.
And you don't always understand why that is.
Right. And you don't need to. You just need to be there, right?
No matter how much you try to pull them, somebody who has given up that hope.
Yeah, they need to pull themselves.
Right.
But they just have let the swamp overtake them. You know, they're just, for whatever reason, they have lost the energy, the will, the strength, whatever, and they are literally drowning in sorrow. Yeah. And they they can't pull themselves out of it. And they
sorry, Darren.
It's quite, go ahead. I'm done.
I was just going to say, going back to what I was saying earlier about actually being surprised that that this scene happens relatively early in the film. I was watching and I was like, no, I'm not ready for this already. And I was just sort of dreading the moment as they're going through the swamp, and it just, and I was sort of grateful that the actual moment of Artax going under, that they cut to black, and because I think my memory,
that wail of his, as they cut to black was. Yeah.
I think my memory of it was that you see the whole thing, and so I was like, oh, thank God, that's something at least.
I don't want to watch the horse drown.
Yeah. So it's just so brutal, and just the way the horse is, baring its teeth as it's getting closer to going under, and
almost like he's fighting him to not be sad anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get off me, leave me alone. I'm just going to go down now. So, yeah.
I felt bad for the horse in that scene. I really did.
Yeah.
For the horse actor, if you will.
Right.
I'm like, this probably is not your cup of tea, my man.
Not a comfy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a nice forest field under the mud, right? There's a nice big farm upstate down there. Guys, we got about 10 minutes left. Pull out your good tidbits, chat. Throw out what you want us to make sure we cover.
I have something that I can talk about for a couple minutes while we're waiting.
Go right ahead while we wait for the chat to give us some suggestions.
So, Ingabok and Urgel, right? That couple.
Great names.
I know, right? They're fabulous. So we've got a scientist and a doctor. They're both like rationally minded people, right? And then he's been studying the Oracle for 100 years.
Mhm.
And then we find out he's never even been down there, like not tried to go through, but like never even been down there. He's never been closer than that telescope, right? And so it's like he's into this fascinating thing, but he doesn't have the courage to go and experience it at all. And of course, that's because of the nature of the test. You have to have that self-confidence to get through. And it's really interesting because, like, and even the second test too, like you don't, you can't control the tests. The tests are what they are. And all you can do is control yourself and your own reactions to them. And that's like another amazingly deep metaphorical representation anyway of this life lesson. This, you can't control life. Life will come at you no matter what you do. The only thing that you can do is control yourself and your reaction to it, and not give up to the sadness.
Right.
Stuff like that.
I'm here for it.
I found that first test really interesting because what actually it's not just about like being, you know, purely confident, because you can be overconfident too, and it's this idea of knowing your worth. So it's like this very thin line of you know, knowing your value but also not thinking too much of yourself.
Right.
The second date will get
being
you.
confident in a humble way, kind of. Yeah.
I'm awesome, and I know I'm awesome. But I know a lot of other awesome people too.
Yeah. You're not the mostest.
I'm not the most awesome. I know lots of people more awesome than me. At least one of them is on the screen with me right now.
In different ways. We all have our own strengths, and those are the ways that we're awesome, and we're awesome in those ways more than others, and others are more awesome in other ways than we are, and it's all this fun little, yay, we're all great.
Well, I don't see anybody bringing anything up in the chat, so throw out your final thoughts.
I just want to say, like, first of all, that this stream has been such a pleasure because I really loved revisiting this film, and I didn't expect to. Like, full disclosure, you know, Steven said we're going to be doing the Neverending story, and I was like, okay. But like, I was shocked. Like, I've said it a couple times now, the minute the movie started and that music kicks in, and I was like, oh my God, I remember just being so completely in love with this. So it's been a joy, not just to revisit it, but to get to, you know, dive into it with you guys and talk about the themes and characters and stuff.
I suggested it. Sorry, Nessie.
She did. She did. I sent a message to her and like, it's been a little bit since we covered a movie. You want to do one? And she's like, yeah, what about this, or this? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yep. So,
Never, like, I had a thought that that the movie would in general hold up, but that I would, as seeing it through an adult's eyes, I would think less of it. And that is true, but what I did not expect was to come away from watching it with a renewed respect for it for other reasons. Again, because of these larger themes, especially about like storytelling, narrative purpose, metatextual relationships, because of the way Bastian feels about Atreyu as being that sort of like guiding star for how he wants to be. You know, we all can relate to that through the characters that we love in our media.
I do want to say also, just because I was thinking about what you were just saying, Stephen, about, you know, your response to it and how, you know, certain areas didn't like have the effect on you that maybe they did when you were a kid, but you responded to other things. And I think I would agree in certain respects, but I will say there were moments, and a lot of this is, of course, stereotypically me tied to the music, like I think of moments like when Atreyu is being given the quest, and that music that plays as the guy is saying, this will protect you, and it sent chills down my spine because I remembered the emotional response that gave me as a kid.
Are you talking about the guy with the bone mohawk?
Yeah,
the Klingon.
And
he was a Jedi master. What are you talking about?
And so that triggered just the combination of the memory of the effect that had on me, and also the music, which is really good. It's all just sort of, it triggered those emotions in me again. So even if I thought, I can see where I'm not taking this moment as seriously as an adult, but it still triggered those feelings in me. So
I get it. We get different things out of movies. That's one of the reasons I enjoy having you as a guest or as a co-host so much, John, is because I can rely on you to have a different point of view than me. Otherwise, it's just us agreeing about everything and not really digging into the nitty gritty. So I do want to throw it to Nessie. Nessie, you kind of you didn't love this movie. Has any of the stuff we've talked about sort of changed your view on any of it? Or are you still just no, doesn't work for me?
I mean, I don't hate it. It's just not something that I would ever pick out for myself to watch on a Saturday afternoon when it's raining. But I did see, there was some heavy themes here. You've got a kid who's dealing with grief and loss and tragedy in his life, and nobody's listening to him. He's retreated into his fantasy world, pretty much, withdrawing away from school, from activities, from everything. His dad's just ignoring him. So, I can kind of relate to that a little bit. Retreating into your books to find something that has worth and meaning, and to take you away from the pain of everyday living. I can relate to that on a pretty good scale there. Also, when Atreyu is given his quest, he's told to put down his weapons. That he will not be taking weapons with you. This is
not a weapon. I mean, no harm. Sorry.
Yeah, these are not. It's not going to be that kind of fight, that kind of quest. It's going to be like an inward quest where he gives him the double Ouroboros symbol, which is there is no end and there is no beginning. Everything flows into itself. So that there's, a meta example, the never ending story. This Ouroboros, it's never ending. And the next story starts at the end of the current story. So that's kind of heavy handed right there. Yeah, Bastian's dad was a dick. So, right from the beginning that it's not going to be your typical go out, fight the dragon kind of quest. It's going to be
it's not, and not at all
introspective type of a journey. So that is kind of cool for a quote unquote, kids movie, teaching them that. And then yet at the end, you got to go scare the bullies with the big flying dog. You could have not done with that, but you solve your problems. You solve your problems from thought and introspection, and not so much shoot it with a bow and arrow. Or I think that's what Atreyu had with him. He had some arrows or something.
Right.
This great warrior, but you're not going to use your weapons. You're going to use your mind and your heart.
Yeah, specifically your heart, because it's so emotional as a journey. So, and it's all about how you feel about yourself. So, to get through to the end. Oh, the end. Never ending. Anyway.
That's why it's the never-ending story.
I do want to comment. AK mentioned Atreyu being green in the books, or in the book, and that's when I started reading the book that gave me a double take, because I'm like, he's what now?
Yeah.
I don't think that would have worked with were they going to paint him green? I don't think that. I don't think that
just a color balance at the end.
Yeah, I'd like to answer what AK. I'd like to get Yeah, they did. They asked for this, the best warrior of the village and whatnot, and because because he had to go on that type of a spiritual journey. He wasn't. He had no problem. He had confidence in arms and weaponry and things of that nature, but maybe he needed to go on that type of a journey
and grow in this other way,
to grow into another type of hero.
Right.
So that may have been the reason.
I like that.
I'm for one am glad he's not green.
Yeah.
Green?
No kidding. Poor
green
Noah.
Is our favorite color.
I mean, they did.
I love green, but
they did still refer to the purple buffalo. So.
Well, also, let's be honest. The story is in Bastian's head, and when you describe a plains horse riding people that hunt buffalo, and he's got it on his back, what does he think of? He thinks of a Native American.
Yeah.
So, it makes perfect sense for him to have that sort of cast to him. In his, especially in the long hair and in the way he's dressed. I think it works because it's Bastian's imagination of what Atreyu looks like.
Right.
Yeah. And that's like the first sign of his interaction in the story as well. He reads the description and sees the image, and then that's
pattern.
What?
Oh, you didn't see? It gets 7 out of 10 ducks on Potter from Potter. Yeah, exactly. 7 out of 10, perfect score. All right. Well, my final thought is that I want a racing snail. The thing is way cuter than it has any right to be, and it just looks like fun.
Oh, it really is a racing snail.
Yeah, it could blow up some dust, man.
My final thought is that the Empress had the actress that played her. She had the tiniest ears with almost no earlobes at all, and that's just something I noticed. Yep, that's true.
I might forget about that by the next time I revisit it. Otherwise, I won't be able to stop focusing.
Her ears. I can only stare at her ears.
Zooming in on the ears.
Yeah,
they are tiny.
Oh, actually, I have one last question. Because I even watched the end of the movie with subtitles on, and when he shouts his mother's name, there is no subtitle.
Yep. There's it's just a string of syllables that we aren't privy to. It's private for him. I like that.
And for us to also, interject,
how am I supposed to
our own name for her? Yeah.
How am I supposed to name one of my children after the story if you don't tell me what the name is?
Well, that's the point, because you get to name her, so you get to name your children whatever you choose.
Does he
to be her name?
Child?
No.
Well, I think I was reading. I think that's what it is in the book, because it's not explicitly said that she. From what I understand, that it's his mom's name. I think in the book he just chooses a name.
Right. I think that's right.
I haven't actually read it for myself, so I could be wrong about that. But
sure.
but that's the impression that I got. Whereas in the movie, it's intentionally,
calling back to his grief.
Yeah, and
allowing that name to be associated with his hope for the future.
Right.
To rebuild Fantasia from that.
With memories of his mom.
Yeah. Right.
It's beautiful.
Exactly, Kate. Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so I think that's the end? Question mark?
Yeah, I mean, I could try and prattle on for a little while longer, but I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah.
So, yeah,
we could just sing the song for the last couple minutes.
Man, I don't know the words except for
anyway.
Never-ending story. Okay. All right. Definitely Moonchild, which is why I'm like, I couldn't make it out. I knew it started with an M, and I knew it was 3 syllables. Q Dustin from Stranger Things. Yep. Okay, so yeah, y'all come back next week. We're gonna have my daughter on for, and I know that nerd. It's just gonna be daddy-daughter nerdy talk discussion time. Come by, ask us questions. She is like the female millennial version of me in a lot of ways. So yeah, it ought to be a good time. We'll be covering Clone Wars after that. John and Nessie both on a little bit of a vacation at the moment, I know, but you'll both be making content again soon. And as soon as you do, we will begin shouting it out right here. In the meantime, you can go check their channels and watch their old stuff because it's good, I promise you. John Webster Film, The Unspun Yarn. And then Christine, you've got the Nevernever podcast, and what's coming up over there?
I have the second episode for the second book in the series, and I'm finishing it up, and we'll be recording probably this week. So that's exciting. It'll be released pretty soon. I don't have a definite day because I don't do that, because then I'll miss the definite day. But yeah, so it'll be soon. We're getting our 11th episode up. So,
nice. Looking. Yeah. I'm glad you're making your way through that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and so I have no intention of stopping now.
Right.
I mean, there's 13, 15 novels. You got a catalog.
We're up to 17 actually.
17, yeah.
17 plus 2 collections of short stories.
Short stories.
Yeah, it's a lot of material.
There's barely anything to work with. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, what are you going to do when you run out of
squeeze blood from a stone?
Material. Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, and also I'm doing live Baldur's Gate 3 gameplay on Thursday nights. When am I doing it? Thursday nights at 9 Eastern. I'm playing some Baldur's Gate 3 and live streaming it, and come watch me hack up goblins in a Dungeons and Dragons game.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think that's it. John, Nessie, great as always. Christine, you're once again a joy to have. Need to get you for something.
Being here.
We'll get you for something that's not an old movie at some point.
Okay.
Yes, The Chronicles of Tim. We must find a healer. Yeah. Our character in D&D is Tim.
Still haven't found that healer.
No, we haven't.
I just want to say before we go though, I've had kind of a tough week, and it means a lot to do this with you guys, and I had such a fun time today. So just thank you.
This is a shelter for me as well. I've had not a great couple of weeks myself, but like this is always very cathartic, therapeutic. Just to bring my friends around me and talk about the stuff we love.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I mean, we've all been doing a lot of emotional heavy lifting the last little while, so yeah, it's great to hang out with friends and talk about fun movies from our childhood or whatever. Pick it apart and put it back together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Nessie, I think your insights were especially from what I'd consider like an outside perspective, because you're not like in it with the love, Mm-hmm. I thought they were really, really spot on, and I really appreciated those insights.
Yeah, like Nessie doesn't disagree for no reason. She's got her reasons, and they're good reasons.
Yeah.
And like even like coming from the nostalgic point of view that I was, like, I recognize that, from a non-nostalgic perspective, this is not a movie for everybody, and that there's, there's things that you can definitely like just kind of roll your eyes at, or, are just don't work or whatever. So it's good to bring that perspective in and not just have it be, a love fest coming from that nostalgic perspective. That's very valuable.
A balanced perspective overall.
Yeah.
Just going for balance.
Right.
Itch.
So come back next week where you will get not balanced perspective. You'll just get me and my kid. But honestly, she's awesome. I love her to bits. Saturday is her birthday. She's going to be here for the weekend. So Sunday, I'm just like, woo! Hey, just come sit next to me and we'll chat. So
that's awesome.
So think about stuff. Now she's turning 24. Think of questions you want to ask my 24-year-old daughter. She is spoken for. She's engaged. So like, don't ask that. I mean, you can ask. You're gonna get shot down though. I've met a boyfriend. He's pretty awesome. But yeah, we'll see you back here next week. I love all you guys. You're my weekly dose of like. I look forward to this every week. I get nervous right before, but while we're doing it, this is like the highlight of my week. So we'll see you all again, same time next week, right here to do the thing. And until then, you know what it is. Peace and be excellent to each other.